Hello and welcome to the number one championship podcast, the second tier. I'm Ryan Dilks, and this is our reaction straight off the back of Sheffield United slapping Bristol City 6-0 on Ag. The biggest playoff win in playoff history, the biggest aggregate win in playoff history is what I should say. Not a great night for those in red coming from Gloucestershire all the way up to Bramall Lane. And Bristol, we now know Sheffield United are, in fact, on their way to Wembley. I'm here to talk about it with, of course, the man, the myth, the legend. That is the Tom Cannon to my Kiefer Moore. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
And Justin will go in depth in that game very shortly. But before we get onto that, we have once again got a big prize to give away to one lucky winner who is viewing this on our YouTube live stream right now. We're giving away a Jameson Admiral tracksuit to one lucky winner. All you have to do is leave a comment and we'll pick a winner to be announced at the end of the show. It really is as easy as that. 18 plus, UK only, T's and C's apply. Click the link in the description for a full list of T's and C's and get involved with the conversation as we go on throughout the show. We'll be reading out your comments throughout the next 20-25 minutes or so as we analyse what was a pretty brutal game in the end, Justin Peach. What did you make of it? It was always going to be a mountain to climb for Bristol City to even get their noses back in this contest. But yeah, this was pretty humbling on their behalf.
Yeah, humbling and a half, really. It was one of them where I was quite encouraged by their start. I really was, and I was thinking, I was rubbing my hands together. I was thinking, Ryan, oh bloody hell, we've got a comeback going on here. The loins were full. It was great, and then the goal didn't come. It didn't come, and it didn't keep coming. It just, it was. I felt like the steam ran out for Bristol City, and then I think the nerves in the ground settled a little bit, and then obviously Sheffield United got the goals before half time, and everything just lifted. So from the game's point of view, really good start from Bristol City, and then it was a professional job from the Blades. That's all you can really say. It was thoroughly professional. Suit and tie, briefcase, as professional as you get.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary, Justin. Bristol City did actually start really well. They had 3 shots in the first 11 minutes. I was looking at Sheffield United and I was like, they haven't started well here at all, really. The atmosphere was very flat in the first 30 minutes of the game. Sheffield United couldn't really get a grip on things. Bristol City didn't punish them for that, but I would have definitely said in the first 30 minutes Bristol City were the better side. And then Sheffield United started to get a foothold in the game, and then Kiefer Moore fired them ahead in the 41st minute with a header from a corner. And then from that point, I was like, well, that's game over then, isn't it, Justin?
Yeah, exactly. It almost took the wind out of the sails of Bristol City. I think, again, like, as I say, probably from Sheffield United's point of view, they expected that fast start. I would have expected Chris Wilder to have briefed his team on Bristol City coming out of the blocks, because they're 3-0 down. They've got to really get a goal early. They're almost desperate for a goal, get it early and make everybody nervous and edgy, and almost turn the crowd a little bit. But it never came, as I say, and I think Sheffield United expected that start, which maybe alludes to their almost a flat beginning of the game for them. But it was well managed, I thought, despite Bristol City's full endeavour, if you like. But like you said, I think from that goal, everything just lifted. The crowd lifted just before half time as well. Game's dead after that, or the tie's dead, if you like. You're now going into the second half where, from Bristol City's point of view, you're playing for a little bit of pride, and that's not really what you want to do in a semi-final second leg, is it?
No, when you get into that stage and you're like, lads, just give it your all in the second half and just see how it goes. That's never great. As we've got a comment here from Darren Elliott, Bristol City weren't up for it. I think they were in the first 30 minutes, but then that Kiefer Moore goal just really killed things off, didn't it? And it didn't get much better in the second half with Gustavo Hamer's deflected effort going in the 52nd minute. When that's going in, luck is not on your side, is it?
Yeah, I think it was the commentators was saying that, your luck's not with you if that, as you said, if that goes in, that it wasn't even a threatening shot from Gustavo Hamer. I thought it was a good block. I think it was from Ross McCrory. And it just goes under his foot. And I don't know how it gets that much lift over Max O'Leary. It's quite incredible how that went in, really. But like you said, if that sort of effort is going in, you've not had had the fair share of green on your side, or the fair share of luck on your side, have you? Rub of the green, I should say. Obviously,
Yeah.
with the Rob Dickie sending off in the first leg as well. Yeah, you're on the unfortunate side of football if that's happening.
Yeah, they've not had a lot of things go their way over the two legs, have they? And we'll talk more about that very shortly. But yeah, if it wasn't dead after the Kiefer Moore goal, then it definitely was dead in the after the Gustavo Hamer goal. 67th minute, Sheffield United fans started olaying. You put a text in the second tier group chat, Justin, saying, "Shall we just start the live stream now?" Because there's not going to be anything else to talk about for the last 20 minutes. I made some pasta in that time, had my tea. That's kind of the vibe that came with this final 20, 25 minutes or so. And then Callum O'Hare buried one from close range in the 83rd minute to make it the biggest aggregate scoreline in playoff history, which is some going, isn't it, Justin?
It is incredible. When they pulled up the stats, I think they had to go back to 1988, which crazy enough was Chelsea. But there was 6-1s in there. It was quite striking, really, that we've not seen something as comfortable as this. And again, you go back to that first leg, don't you? You go back to that sending off of Rob Dickie. That's what you point towards, isn't it? Where the game and the tide changes in that moment, because things are very level at that point. And then second half, 10 against 11, Sheffield United just take control. Obviously, when the Ole come out, that everything changes in that moment for Bristol City. And then for Sheffield United, they have the bit between their teeth and they go for it. You can't really discourage or discredit them. It was I think a fantastic effort, and I think the dominance they showed over the two legs and even at Bramall Lane, fully deserving of their place at Wembley. It's kind of weird, isn't it, when we're talking about their place at Wembley, because there was no drama involved other than the sending off in the first leg. They just sort of waltzed into Wembley. There's nothing emphatic about it. It was just, we've battered a team, let's go again, sort of thing.
I mean, 6-0 is pretty emphatic, but the point I would make is I don't think it really felt like a 6-0 game over two legs for me. I think the scoreline does do Bristol City a bit of a disservice. Not entirely a disservice, but I don't think they were as bad as the scoreline suggests. Because first 45 minutes of the first leg, they were actually pretty good. They gave Sheffield United a game. It was the sending off which really killed off that first leg, and then Bristol City just had to try and keep the score down as well as they could, which they didn't do very well. And they were heading into this with a mountain to climb. Again, started all right in the first 25, 30 minutes of this game, and then it all quickly eclipsed their chances of any chance of going to Wembley. And yeah, when the referee just blows on 90 minutes with no injury time, that's it's respectful, but it is also a way of saying, yeah, this is getting a bit humiliating. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, isn't it?
It's a football indignity, isn't it? It's not nice when. It's happened to me playing on Sunday morning, playing the old Taverners, 6-1 down.
Just blow the whistle, ref. Come on, mate.
Yeah, 85th minute ref, just please, we want to go home, sort of thing. Yeah, it's a rough end for Bristol City fans, and what has been a very promising season, which we'll probably talk about more. But yeah, when you're down in the first leg, as bad as they are, and you go into the second leg, and you start so positively, but then Sheffield United just take control. Of course, the quality that players have got is there to see, but you don't even get something to cheer about yourselves. I do feel for Bristol City fans, I really do.
We've got some more comments here on the YouTube live stream. Keep coming in with your comments. We'll try to read out as many as possible. We've got Alessandro who says, we're in the history books with that. Up the Wembley-bound Blades. Dylan says, we're going up. Give me Sunderland or Coventry. Ajons says, I think it's fair to say that Bristol City might have dodged a bullet by missing this promotion. How many PL teams will lose 3-0 to the Blades home and away? Yeah, we'll talk more about the tie as a whole, Sheffield United heading into Wembley, and kind of a reflection on Bristol City's season as a whole very shortly, Justin. But let's take a brief moment to look ahead to the other playoff final tomorrow. It's Sunderland v Coventry, with Sunderland, of course, 2-1 up on Ag. SBK are offering a 30% boost on all bet builders with 4 or more selections for this game, and we'll be doing another live stream straight afterwards. But here's how we think it's going to go. Kick us off, Justin, with your first selection for the bet builder in the big game tomorrow night.
I've gone with Coventry to have over 12.5 shots, or 12.5 shots, I should say. Prolific shot takers at Coventry. They've had over 12.5 shots in 5 of the last 8 games, including 14 against Sunderland at the CBS on Friday night.
My first selection for the bet builder is Dan Neil to commit a foul. He's committed at least 1 foul in 10 of his last 12 games, and he's surprisingly decent odds to commit 1 here. So I'm going with that as my next selection. Justin, what's yours?
I've gone with Coventry under 1.5 goals. Cov have not scored over 1.5 goals in their last 5 away games in the league. In fact, Sunderland not conceded over 1.5 in their last 8 home games in the league. So 1.5, under 1.5 for Coventry.
There you go. And the final selection for the bet builder is Sunderland double chance, which for those who aren't very betting savvy basically means us saying Sunderland not to lose in 90 minutes. I just think Sunderland are going to get it over the line. If they play anything like how they did in the first leg, then they should be able to get past Coventry, because Coventry really struggled to get past them. And Sunderland just have to sit on that lead, don't they? They can happily take the draw, and that'll send them on their way to Wembley. So that's why we're going with that. And a £10 stake on that bet builder returns £71.50, thanks to SBK's 30% boost on all bet builders with 4 or more selections for Coventry versus Sunderland. But remember, if you don't fancy our bet builder with SBK, you can create your own bet builder from a range of markets. T's and C's apply. 18 plus, and please do gamble responsibly. Let's keep on talking about the game from tonight then, Justin. And Sheffield United are on their way to Wembley. We always thought it was going to be the case, despite your sense of optimism in the reaction show from a Thursday night, that maybe it's not completely done yet, but it definitely is now. And Sheffield United know they'll be on their way to Wembley. And after that, after these 2 games, Justin, we'll be feeling very, very confident heading into the final, won't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you put over a team by 6 goals to 0, in over 2 legs, it's quite remarkable, isn't it? And I think from Sunderland and Coventry's perspective, you're probably looking at this game and going, "Bloody hell! All right, we've got a game on our hands if we get to Wembley." But I think I can't remember what minute it was in the game. Maybe the 60th minute. It was when they brought on Callum O'Hare, Ryan Brewster and Tyrese Campbell. That is a reminder of the firepower that this Sheffield United team possesses. And I think going into a Wembley final, when you've got this much arm in your armoury, you're going to feel confident. And obviously, there's no point in having all of this in your armoury and not doing the business. Sheffield United did the business. They put 3 past Bristol City, and they played with such control and ease for 60 minutes of the game. When you're going into a Wembley final with that sort of confidence, with that sort of performance behind you, yeah, you're gonna feel very good.
Yeah, it is easily forgotten that Sheffield United did finish 22 points ahead of Bristol City in the normal season. So when that's happening, there was always going to be a clear divide in the class between these two. But I think something that is really, really important to remember here is, heading into the playoffs, Sheffield United weren't in the greatest form, were they? They only had 2 wins in 7 heading into that. So they were in a bit of a sketchy patch themselves. So getting these 2 wins, 2 very comfortable wins ultimately, that is a massive, massive confidence boost for them heading into the final. Admittedly, they have got the best squad out of the 4 teams competing for the playoffs this year. But getting that big confidence boost really gives them another level of advantage, no matter who they face in the final now. So that's going to be a really, really big thing as well, I think, Justin.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing you can say about Sheffield United, or the most, I think, significant you can say about them, is the biggest hurdle that Sheffield United have is themselves. At the point where they imploded against Oxford, they were in control of pushing for promotion, and then obviously the implosion comes and there's a meltdown and the team loses form and lose ground on the promotion race, or the automatic promotion race from there. Since then, it's all been about regaining that composure, and it's come back very quickly. A winning team can find it, and they did. And all you can do is applaud Chris Wilder for getting recovering the team in that scenario, because they could have gone into this game and the pressure tells, could have told quite quickly. And I wouldn't say an implosion comes again, but they struggle. They struggle, but they didn't. They took control when they needed to, and that's all you can ask of them.
Well, it's easy. It's easy to forget that 3-game collapse where they lost 3 games in 1 week wasn't that long ago.
No.
So for them to be in this position now, where they are very much in the hot seat heading into the final, whoever they face in the final, they will be the favourites to go up ultimately. So for them to have turned it around so quickly in the space of a matter of weeks is really, really impressive from Chris Wilder, because it did look like they were having a bit of a head loss not too long ago. But now they're well back on track. And yeah, they'll definitely be fancying themselves to break their awful playoff record, Justin, because we've spoken about it a lot. The worst playoff record of any team in the country. But now, if they don't break it here, and break that duck is what I'm trying to say, and they'll be kicking themselves, won't they?
Well, I'd argue that all 4 teams in the playoffs this year don't have great playoff records, so someone's got to win it. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So someone's got to break that duck. I know Sunderland won it in League One under Alex Neil, but Championship's different gravy. So yeah, someone's got to win it. But you are right, this is their best chance, isn't it? Their best squad, and their best set of circumstances, because Sheffield United, they're benefiting from parachute payments. They're benefiting from being able to have a much more expensive squad than the rest of them. So this is the best chance that they've got than they've had in previous years.
Yeah, we've got a comment here from Mark who says we need to address the parachute payments issue. Something that we've spoken about a lot, Justin, a hell of a lot over the past season, considering the 3 teams who may very well be going up this year. Maybe now is not the time for that. Maybe that's something we can discuss after the final itself or at a later date. I don't know. Because now I think we should just let Sheffield United celebrate the occasion and see how they get on preparing for that final in... It's 2 weeks away, really. It's such a long way. Has it always been this long, the gap between the first and second legs and the final itself?
Yeah.
It feels ages away still.
It does feel like we've got them out of the way quite quickly. In that we usually have a Saturday game as well. We've not had that this season. But I mean, just quickly on the parachute payments thing, it's worth bearing in mind. I think all the clubs that are in there at the moment, I know Sheffield United are benefiting from parachute payments, but they all had good recruitment strategies. Sheffield United had to readopt theirs this summer. Obviously, with the load of players that left them, they had to rebuild. But Sunderland, Coventry, Bristol City all have very sound recruitment strategies in place, which I think should be a lesson to the rest of the league, that if you get your books in order, do a good job of recruitment, you can find yourself in this glorious position.
Yeah, and what a position it is. Let's talk Bristol City, Justin. Should say, for Sheffield United fans wondering why we're not talking about them more, we'll be talking about you a hell of a lot over the next couple of weeks. Don't you worry about that. There's going to be plenty of Sheffield United coverage coming on the Second Tier Podcast airwaves for the days to come. But Bristol City, Justin, it's very, very disappointing for them, isn't it? Their first playoff campaign in 17 years, and they've been spanked 6-0 over 2 legs. It's not really what they were expecting, especially because Bristol City fans were celebrating on the final day, weren't they? They were going, mental when they got it over the line on the final day to secure their place in the playoffs. And then a matter of days later, they must be feeling as low as they can get, really. I've seen some suggestions on social media in the past few minutes. Obviously, we are recording this fresh off the back of the game itself. But I've seen some suggestions saying that Bristol City are the worst playoff team we've ever had. I feel like that's harsh, but what do you think?
It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because Bristol City's circumstances are very, very unique in that they've had a lot of injuries. I know a lot of teams have had injuries, but Luke McNally been missing for most of the season. Obviously, got injured in October. Mark Sykes, Joe Williams, both out heading into this game. Cameron Pring was thrust into action here after recovering from injury, and Scott Twine only recently come back from injury. So they've come in with a threadbare squad. So I think they've got a lot of squad players in their starting 11 that probably wouldn't get in on a normal, fully fit day, if you like. And in addition to that, really important context, Rob Dickie sending off in the first leg, I think completely changes the tie. I think Sheffield United probably come out as winners, but they don't win 6-0 on aggregate, if that's the case. So for me, when you're going into a second leg 3-0 down, and then the home team scores after 40 minutes, the game's dead. You're then preserving things. So to call them the worst playoff team, I think is incredibly harsh and probably not deserving. But certainly, look, the numbers speak for themselves. On aggregate, they've been absolutely hammered, and they've got to take that home, and they'll live with that. It's in the record books.
Yep, it definitely is, and it's probably going to be in the record books for a while. I stand by what I said a second ago, which was that I don't think the scoreline properly reflects how Bristol City played over the 180 minutes, because for the first half of the first leg, they were pretty good until the Rob Dickie sending off. For the first 30 minutes of this game, they were pretty good as well. I don't think 6-0 properly reflects how they played. I can't recall any teams who are the worst playoff team I can remember in the Championship. Maybe at some point someone will come to mind, but no one's really sticking out for me at the moment. But the point that I think is worth mentioning, and maybe this is slightly a dig at Bristol City, is I think the playoff race this season as a whole hasn't been a great one, because all the teams in that race have been pretty inconsistent all season long, aren't they? Bristol City have actually probably been the most consistent out of those teams chasing the playoffs. But you look at West Brom, for example, they've been very up and down all season long. Middlesbrough have been incredibly up and down, more down than up in the second half of the season. Millwall, also up and down. Blackburn, ditto. Coventry, obviously shocking for the first 3 or 4 months of the season, then managed to pick up under Lampard in the end. So that's what I would say, Justin. I don't think it's been the highest standard of teams chasing the playoffs there, particularly in comparison to the top 3/4 this season. Hit me back on that.
I would agree. Maybe the debate or the word I would use would be it's been more competitive. In amongst that bottom group. But if you just look at the point, I think in most seasons, the team finished sixth this season. In Bristol City's case, probably would have finished outside the playoffs in other seasons, probably more often than not.
You were saying that not long ago, weren't you? You were saying that 68 points in a normal season wouldn't actually get you in the playoffs. Am I misquoting you there?
But I think that was a slight at Coventry a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So in that context, yes, we've not got a great cohort of playoff teams because they've been woefully inconsistent. Usually we get a few bona fide contenders. Usually we get a late runner. We didn't have that this season. It just sort of fell into place as it was.
Kind of Millwall, I guess.
Yeah,
but I suppose the point that is also got to be said here to kind of back up the discussion that we're having. How often is there going to be a 22-point gap between two teams competing in the semi-finals? That feels very, very rare.
Yeah, you've got to realise that Sheffield United accrued over 90 points this season.
And they're the second team not to win automatic promotion after getting 90 points.
There we go. So are Bristol City the worst team, or are Sheffield United one of the best teams we've seen in the playoffs? I think that's the other debate, isn't it? But more on Bristol City, I think, reflecting on them, they've got into season. The fans deserve that final day jubilation, because how often do you get to celebrate that as a football club, especially one that has been batting around mid-table for such a long time? Fans deserved it. But obviously the way they went about the playoffs, or the way the leg transpired, it's not ideal, but it should serve as a lesson for what the club needs to do to build going forwards. That's what they need to take from it. Obviously, if they don't and they finish mid-table next season, then this humiliation has been completely pointless. They need to go out and recruit, because look, Sheffield United brought on Ryan Brewster, Tyrese Campbell, Callum O'Hare, took off Kiefer Moore, Tom Cannon. Bloody hell, Bristol City had Nocky Wells up front.
Bristol City brought on Harry Cornick as well.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, that's a very valid point. The class difference between these two is just, it was clear to see, wasn't it? But it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they bounce back going forwards. But I think we should take this chance, Justin, to kind of reflect on Bristol City's season as a whole, because even though this has been a very, 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 very disappointing end to that season, it has been a brilliant campaign for them, hasn't it? Getting the playoffs for the first time in 17 years. In fact, it's only their first it's only their second, top 10 finish in the past 10 years, I think I'm right in saying. So with all that in mind, for what Liam Manning to do what he has done, ultimately be outclassed in the actual playoffs, but to get them into the playoffs this season with what the tools that he's had at his disposal, it's a great achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is, and they've done it with a relatively young squad that has been hampered by injuries. And Liam Manning's first full season in charge as well. That's an important point to break out, and he's done it with. I don't think he's got a full sort of set of tools to work with. Yeah, I think he's been juggling a little bit. And that being said, there's more to grow with this squad. You just, like I was alluding to, I just want them to learn from this. I don't think they can afford to be pragmatic going forwards in their recruitment strategy. I think they need to be a little bit more aggressive, because I think that passiveness in January has ultimately cost them. They could have finished in the top 6 a lot more comfortably if they had a bona fide number 9 to piece everything together. But more on that as the summer goes. But as far as this season, absolute positivity. Yes, it's ended a little bit sour, on a sour note, but ultimately you finish in the top 6. First time you finished in the top 6 in the Championship since 2008. This is a massive, massive moment, a massive season for the club, and a massive justification in the direction it's going in as well. The big decisions they've had to make over the years with recruitment strategy, changing from spending a lot, obviously sacking Nigel Pearson or departing with Nigel Pearson. This is justification for that strategy, and they need to keep going with it. As simple as that.
Yeah, we've got a comment here from Dom who says Liam Manning, coach of the season in my view, especially with what he's been through this past year. Yeah, he had some very, very sad news earlier on in the season. And when you keep that in mind as well, it's remarkable really how he's managed to carry on and do as good a job as he has done. I'd be very interested, producer Tom, message for you, to pull out a poll for how people think Bristol City will do next season. We'll let that kind of marinate while we continue talking about them. But yeah, I think a really important thing to go back to here is a comment that we had earlier from Ajons, who was saying, I think it's fair to say that Bristol City might have dodged a bullet by missing out on promotion to the Premier League. And I think that is fair because it's still very early in the Bristol City project, isn't it? And if they were to go to the Premier League, they probably would get spanked. It's too soon for them, isn't it? But that's absolutely fine. It's a growing process, and trying to bridge that gap from being a team who have been historically a mid-table championship side for so many years, and then trying to compete with the big guns with the parachute payments or what have you, like Sheffield United. It's a lot easier said than done. It takes a lot of hard work, and it takes numerous years to be able to do that. But Bristol City are on the right track. Nothing has changed despite them getting smashed 6-0 over 2 legs. They are still very much on that track. They've got a brilliant manager in Liam Manning at the helm, and they've got a great, exciting young squad. Yes, it's still weak in places like what we were just mentioning a second ago, just with Narky Wells and their other striking options. But there's a lot of very talented players in this team who are only going to get better next season. And with Bristol City's recruitments that they've done over the past couple of years, I fancy them to continue building and come back even stronger next season.
Yeah, I completely agree. There is such a thing as getting promoted too early, by the way.
Oh, 100%.
It's definitely. Derby got promoted 1 year into a 3-year plan under Billy Davis, and we
didn't have to bring that up.
We've got to bring it up. It's fun,
Justin,
it's topical.
17 years and it still hurts, all right? Especially because Southampton have started pressing on that bruise this past week.
It's ours. But look, you can get promoted too early. It's a really good point to make. But with this, you are right. It is a young, exciting squad. They have had misses with recruitment. I mean, Sinclair Armstrong hasn't been particularly great this season, despite the club putting out a couple of £1 million on him. And I know I've thrown a bit of slight towards Narky Wells, but he has hit double figures. I just don't think you should be relying on a 34-year-old journeyman. Not journeyman, actually. We discovered this in the Craig Bryson pub quiz just a couple of episodes ago. He's got a very good record. But yeah, say he's 34 years old. He should be a squad player, not a starter. This is the problem we've got. But the likes of Anis Mehmeti, Max Bird, Jason Knight, Zach Viner, Max O'Leary. There's a really good crop of players there that are developing as seasons go on, and they've done it on a good budget as well. And they will continue to do it as well. So I'm excited for what Bristol City what's in store for Bristol City. It's just whether the mentality shifts with it. Because the question is, did they really believe in themselves going into this tie? I know ultimately.
I think we were kind of hinting at this on our playoff preview, but it did kind of feel like Bristol City were just happy to be there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there'll probably be a lot that disagree with that, but ultimately, as soon as they go down to 10 men, did they continue believing they were in the tie, that they could win? They've got to get rid of that, and they've got to go, because there's going to be expectation. There's going to be expectation with them next season, and they're going to have to deal with that. And it's a difficult thing to do because we do see clubs, I wouldn't say drop off, but we've seen clubs drop off after finishing the playoffs previous season.
Yeah, I would feel confident in saying this is a stepping stone for Bristol City to hopefully progressing further on their journey. I think one final thing to mention with Bristol City is it's easy to forget they didn't spend any money in January. They were one of only 2 clubs who didn't sign anyone in January, and they put out that very poignant statement where they were saying, just financially, it doesn't make sense for us. So that's another thing to keep in mind, and that's why they are still punching upwards, really, with the playoffs and promotion in general. But it feels like hopefully they will start progressing or continue to keep progressing in that direction as time goes on. We've got a few more comments just before we round things up. Justin Harrison, PNEFC, the curse will carry on. Preston and Bristol City will stay in the Championship. You're going to stay here forever. You're going to be stuck with us forever as well, although I'm becoming less and less confident about Preston doing that as the weeks go by. SAFC 392 says seasons like this can result in a worse second season. Look at Sunderland last season, almost like a reality season. Yep, fair point to make. Definitely a fair point to make. Bristol City need to make sure that's not the case, and they just continue building from here. Let's do some reaction to the polls. Justin, we had the first poll, which was, are Sheffield United going up? Of course, still waiting to find out who they're facing in the final, but 68% of people said yes. 31% said no on that one. Be interesting to get another poll on that tomorrow, who we think is going to win the playoff final, and compare that to the results here today. And finally, the poll which I asked producer Tom to put out just a second ago: how will Bristol City do next season? Relegation. Tom, why are you putting relegation in there? That feels a bit dramatic. Jesus Christ. 4% of people said relegation somehow. Automatics got 0%, so not many fancy in that one there. 69% of people said mid-table. 27% said playoffs. Interesting, that, Justin. Interesting. Don't know if you've got a quick take on that.
I would put the mid-table at the moment as well.
Okay. When we say mid-table, are we saying like just outside the playoffs?
I would say 12th to 8th. That's where I'm batting them right now.
Okay, fine. That is absolutely fine. But there we go, ladies and gents. This has been our instant reaction straight off the back of the biggest playoff win on aggregate in Championship history. Oh, poor Bristol City. It was such a big occasion for them, and it's ended up like this. But in credit to them, one final thing we'll say is their fans were in great voice all night, weren't they? Even though they were getting thumped, they were singing all night long. So fair play to them on that. And hopefully this is just a building block to bigger things for them. Before we go, it's time to reveal the winners of our Jameson Admiral tracksuit giveaway. We've received plenty of comments on this, and we can now announce our winner. By the way, these tracksuits are lovely. Yes. Justin and I have each got a pair ourselves. Oh, they are gorgeous. Very, very comfy. And congratulations to Scott Tabor. You have won yourself a Jameson Admiral tracksuit. Get in touch with us by emailing secondtierpod@gmail.com to claim your prize, and we'll be in touch with details on that. But there we go, ladies and gents. This has been the first playoff semi-final out of the way. For being honest, this one was pretty straightforward. It was always going to be a surprise if Sheffield United weren't in the final. We have the more interesting one tomorrow night when Sunderland welcome Coventry. Being 2-1 up on Ag, can Coventry overturn things? We will find out. So I'm so looking forward to that game. We'll be doing another reaction straight off the back of that on our YouTube, doing a live stream. Make sure you join us then for that and get involved with the conversation. But that's just about time for us here on the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.